Hello again. Okay, tonight is going to be very short because it is after church and Abby's tired. Any of y'all that have listened to my buddy, that's my recording of the book Buddy. That's my accent from Buddy. So, anyway, here we are. Chapter 2 of Hinds' Feet on High Places. And the last thing that we talked about was that the Fearing clan had come over to convince Little Much Afraid that she must have misunderstood about marrying Craven Fear, and that it was such a great opportunity to what did they say? It was her duty to attempt the impossible task of trying to convert Craven Fear into something less objectionable than he really was. And then suddenly there came an interruption from without. The Fearings had carefully closed the door when they entered the cottage, and even contrived to bolt it, so that Much Afraid could not escape. Now came the distant sound of a man's voice, raised in song, singing one of the songs from the old book which Much Afraid knew and loved so well. Then the singer himself came in view, slowly passing along the lane. It was the chief shepherd, already leading his flock to the watering place. The words floated in through the open window, accompanied by the soft bleating of the sheep and the scuffling of many little dusty feet as they pattered after him. It seemed as though all other sounds were hushed to stillness on that quiet summer afternoon, as the shepherd sang while passing the cottage. Inside, the clamor of voices had ceased instantly and was succeeded by silence which could be felt. This is what he sang. The voice of my beloved, through all my heart it thrills. He leaps upon the mountains and skips upon the hills. For like a roe or young hart, so swift and strong is he. He looketh through my window, and beckoneth unto me. Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away with me. Gone are the snows of winter, the rains no more we see. The flowers are appearing, the little birds all sing, the turtle dove is calling. Through all the land 'tis spring. The shoots are on the grapevines, the figs are on the tree. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away with me. Why is my dove still hiding, when all things else rejoice? Oh, let me see thee, fair one. Oh, let me hear thy voice. Song of Songs, Chapter 2, verses 8 through 14. As she sat listening in the cottage, Much Afraid knew with a pang of agonizing pain that the shepherd was calling her to go with him to the mountains. This was the secret signal he had promised, and he had said she must be ready to leave instantly, the moment she heard it. Now, here she was, locked inside her own cottage, beleaguered by her terrible fears, and unable to respond in any way to his call, or even to give any sign of her need. There was one moment, indeed, when the song first started and everyone was startled into silence, when she might have called to him to come and help her. She did not realize that the Fearings were holding their breath, lest she did call and had she done so, they would have fled helter-skelter through this door. However, she was too stunned with fear to seize the opportunity, and then it was too late. The next moment she felt Coward's heavy hand laid tightly over her mouth. Then other hands gripped her firmly and held her in the chair. So the shepherd slowly passed the cottage, showing himself at the window and singing the signal song, but receiving no response of any kind. When he had passed, and the words of the song and the bleating of the sheep had died away, in the distance it was found that Much Afraid had fainted. Her cousin Coward's gagging hands half choked her. Her relatives would dearly have liked to seize this opportunity and carry her off while she was unconscious. But as this was the hour when everybody was returning from work, it was too dangerous. The Fearings decided, therefore, that they would remain in the cottage until darkness fell, then gag Much Afraid and carry her off unperceived. When this plan had been decided upon, they laid her upon the bed to recover as best she might, while some of the aunts and cousins went out into the kitchen to see what provisions for refreshing themselves might be plundered. The men sat smoking in the sitting room, and Gloomy was left to guard the half-conscious victim in the bedroom. Gradually, Much Afraid regained her senses, and as she realized her position, she nearly fainted again with horror. She dared not cry out for help, for all her neighbors would be away at their work. But were they? No, it was later than she had thought, for suddenly she heard the voice of Mrs. Valiant, her neighbor in the cottage next door. At the sound, Much Afraid braced herself for one last desperate bid for escape. Gloomy was quite unprepared for such a move, and before she realized what was happening, Much Afraid sprang from the bed and shouted through the window as loudly as her fear permitted, "Valiant! Valiant! Come and help me! Come quickly! Help!" At the sound of her first cry, Mrs. Valiant looked across the garden and caught a glimpse of Much Afraid's white, terrified face at the window and of her hand beckoning entreatingly. The next moment the face was jerked away from view, and a curtain suddenly drawn across the window. That was enough for Mrs. Valiant, whose name described her exactly. She hurried straight across to her neighbor's cottage and tried the door, but finding it locked, she looked in through a window and saw the room full of Much Afraid's relatives. Mrs. Valiant was not the sort of person to be the least intimidated by what she called a pack of idle fears. Thrusting her face right in through the window, she cried in a threatening voice, "Out of this house you go this minute, every one of you. If you have not left in 3 seconds, I shall call the chief shepherd. This cottage belongs to him, and won't you catch it if he finds you here." The effect of her words was magical. The door was unbolted and thrown open, and the Fearings poured out pell-mell, tumbling over one another in their haste to get away. Mrs. Valiant smiled grimly as she watched their ignominious flight. When the last one had scuttled away, she went into the cottage to Much Afraid, who seemed quite overcome with fear and distress. Little by little she learned the story of those hours of torment and the plan to kidnap the poor victim after darkness fell. Mrs. Valiant hardly knew herself what it was to feel fear, and had just routed the whole gang of Fearings single-handedly. She felt much inclined to adopt a bracing attitude and to chide the silly girl for not standing up to her relatives at once, boldly repulsing them before they got into before they got her into their clutches. But as she looked at the white face and terrified eyes, and saw the quaking body of poor Much Afraid, she checked herself. What is the use of saying it? She can't act upon it, poor thing. She is one of them herself, and has got fearing in the blood. And when the enemy is within you, it's a poor prospect, I think. No one but the shepherd himself can really help her, she reflected. So, instead of an admonition, she patted the trembling girl and said with all the kindness of her motherly heart, "Now, my dear, while you are getting over your fright, I'll just pop into the kitchen and make a good cup of tea for both of us, and you'll feel better at once. My, if they hadn't been in here and put the kettle on for us," she added, as she opened the kitchen door and found the cloth already on the table, and the preparations for the plundered meal which the unwanted visitors had so hastily abandoned. "What a pack of harpies!" she muttered angrily to herself, then smiled complacently as she remembered how they had fled before her. By the time they had drunk their tea, and Mrs. Valiant had energetically cleared away the last traces of the unwelcome invaders, Much Afraid had nearly recovered her composure. Darkness had long since fallen, and now it was much too late for her to go to the pool to keep tryst with the shepherd, and explain why she had not responded to his call. She would have to wait for the morning light. So, at Mrs. Valiant's suggestion, as she was feeling utterly exhausted, she went straight to bed. Her neighbor saw her safely tucked in, and kissed her warmly and reassuringly. Indeed, she offered to sleep in the cottage herself that night, but Much Afraid, knowing that she had family waiting for her at home, refused the kind offer. However, before leaving, Mrs. Valiant placed a bell beside her bed, and assured her that if anything alarmed her in the night, she had only to ring the bell, and the whole Valiant family would be over instantly to assist her. Then she went away, and Much Afraid was left alone in the cottage. And that's the end of chapter 2. I am going to stop here tonight, and I will continue with the entire chapter 3 tomorrow, which, oh my goodness, is called Flight in the Night. So, I have a new thing to share, and I pray it blesses you. So, I'm going to sing you a song from Habakkuk 3:17 through 19, which also gives us the scripture, Hinds' feet on high places. So here we go. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He enables me to walk on heights. So, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Until tomorrow, good night.